that was the finale. The grand finale of the birthday cake. It's good to finish with sparkles, right? So, first, it's so good to see all of you here. And we're totally honored that we get to celebrate the second birthday here with Creative Mornings, with this amazing team. You guys have good coffee, you've got good food, but really this is about community. And that's also such a key part of why we're excited to be joining you. So, but now we get to talk about the state of flow. So the first question that I've got, because for us it's something that's coming up in the vocabulary in general, but who here knows something, at least basic stuff, about the state of flow? Familiar with it in some way? Okay, so what we're going to do up here is we're not going to talk about the state of flow. We're going to give you a little introduction, but what we really want to do is talk about how you can bring flow into your everyday life. Why do you even want it? Why is it something that you should play around with and explore? But then from that point, how do you bring your personal essence to it? So the state of flow, the reason why it's something that's kind of interesting is because it's something that allows us to tap into expedited learning, right? So learning twice as fast as we normally would otherwise. It also releases a certain flow of chemicals from our brains that helps us make faster connections. So it takes information that we've known in the past and helps us connect the dots. So this is why creativity is spurred on in the state of flow. And really what it is that we become one with whatever the activity is that we're doing. We're no longer, somebody who's going through the process, but we're actually fully and deeply involved in the activity or the group work or whatever it might be that we're doing. And this is where we want to spend a little bit of time. So not only taking you to the door, taking you to the entrance, some of the keys that are foundational elements of finding this state of flow, but then also how you can bring it into your everyday life. Because a lot of folks are thinking that flow is more for the professional athletes or the piano players who are doing all of the composition. But it's something that, to be honest, we can each find in all everyday moments. And so that's the chance that we have that we're excited to share with you. And Mathias is going to bring us to the doorway, actually.
Thank you. So the next chart is a good one. It's black. Sarah was asking me, did you miss something or what happened there? No, it's correct because there's nothing to look at right now. I would like to invite you to a little visualization exercise. And for that, you need to close your eyes. Are you up for that challenge? It takes 5 minutes. It's not dangerous. Okay. So first, so that you don't fall asleep, we do some breathing. Okay. So 10 times I would like for you to deeply breathe in, fully fill your lungs to capacity. So do this now. Deeply breathe in. And just let go. And when you let go, you just breathe out for 70%. Deeply breathe in again, fully fill your lungs, and let go. Fully in, and letting go. Five more times, fully in, and letting go. Fully in and letting go. Maybe your body starts tingling a little bit. This is totally normal, no problem. Fully in and letting go. One more time. Fully in and letting go. And now I want you to focus your attention fully on your sensory perception. Focus on your chest. And then on your belly. And on your legs. And your feet. And let all the thoughts and worries and whatever is going on within you go. Fortunately, we have the river below us, so it can take it all away. And for these few minutes, you don't have to think about anything at all. You don't have to worry about what happened yesterday. You don't have to think about the grocery shopping that you have to do later. You're just here. Floating on a river. Can you hear the sound of the engines? Can you feel the chair that you're sitting on? Fully arrive here. So now when I ask you to open your eyes again, I want you to keep that state alive. Okay? So come back into the room with me, but stay with your attention on your inner process, just a little bit, okay? One foot in your inner process and the other foot here in the room. Can you do this? Okay. So this is not flow. I would love to take you into flow, but that's unfortunately not possible like this. But this is the door. This is the door towards flow. Okay? So what is this door about? The first thing is challenge. Yeah? These are the ingredients for flow. So challenge means, well, you have a certain task, you have a certain goal, you aspire to do something. Yeah, you set out to achieve something. A challenge is needed for flow. The second piece is non-identification. Okay, that sounds complicated. What is that? Well, in flow, you don't have a personal sense of self in that sense. Okay, so the idea of who you are as a person disappears. Yeah? So when you think, well, I am Peter, and I work in a steel factory, and all of that yada yada yada, all of that story disappears. The third piece is presence. Presence is the here and now, the present moment that happens right here. Okay, so you cannot be in the past and you cannot be in the future. As soon as you think about the past or the future, you're no longer here, and that closes the door towards flow. And the last bit is focus and attention. So if you get distracted by your smartphone or whatever, you also cannot be in flow, right? So you have to fully focus your attention on whatever you're doing in that present moment. And all four of these ingredients or prerequisites build the door, and the door has four sides, so that's kind of easy to memorize. First we had the idea to call it flip into flow, like to create that acronym with flip, but for some reason it doesn't work with these words.
We couldn't find L, so
you
we're like,
find
damn.
L. So we didn't want to bend reality, so it's like that. Okay. So why this door? Well, first of all, this is like the kind of the abstract, the framework. Yeah. All of these things need to be there in order to be able to tap into flow. And the next picture that you see is kind of, a proof for that. So a few of these people are actually here right now. Maybe we can advertise for that. So every Friday morning, 8 a.m., we meet on Pfalz, there on the Münster, and we run towards Novartis campus and we jump into the Rhine. So that's a flow experience, right? Because it's freezing cold in winter. But let's check in. What happens when you expose yourself to cold water? Well, it's definitely a challenge, right? So this one we have. You focus your attention. You cannot, be distracted. It just doesn't work, right? All of your attention is there. You are in the present moment, and you are not identified with yourself because you have way too much to experience in this moment. So this is one example for flow. But, you don't have to get scared, right? So you don't have to jump into the Rhine to experience flow. There are other ways. And these other ways we call the keys to open the door towards flow. And Rebecca is going to tell you more about these keys.
So you just saw this person trying to pick the lock, right? Doesn't really work that way. But there's better news that when we come to the door is the same for everyone, right? The elements of flow are standard. But what's different are that we each have our own keys. And that's highly individualized. But it's not that we each have one key. It's that there are a multitude of keys that when we recognize that we have this keychain with a number of possibilities for ourselves to open that door, then all of a sudden we recognize we can start to bring flow into our everyday life. So again, not just the extreme sportsman or the composer, but that in our work lives and in our everyday, even making of our coffee in the morning. So the first key that I want to talk about is one that it's the most obvious because it's what you've heard a lot from the sportsman. So I'll give you a little example. I've got a client who's a CEO, and he's the creative driving force behind his tech company. But what was happening was he was struggling with bringing the creativity because he was feeling so constrained by his everyday work life. And when we were talking through things, he said, I feel like I'm struggling to bring the creativity back. And I was saying, okay, so where do you start to find that it flows naturally? Not just in work, but in your everyday life. And he said, well, when I'm on the mountain, right? When I'm skiing, when I'm carving those slopes. I said, okay, so when was the last time that you were actually skiing? And he said, well, I don't have time to do that. I said, okay, what if you carve out time? Oh, that's funny, I made the joke. Yeah, carve out time. We talked about making that joke, I just did it. So all of a sudden, he comes back 3 weeks later and he goes, you'll never believe what happened. We were in our sales meeting and all of a sudden, the ideas just started flowing. And I recognized, because I had asked my family if I could just head off into the mountains alone, and he had gone skiing. And for him, that was a key. So this hard and fast adrenaline type stuff is one thing, right? Maybe you might be somebody who says, I'm struggling to move forward in a decision. So maybe you drop and do 20 push-ups. Maybe you go for a really hard workout. Or you find something that moves the adrenaline, like jumping in the Rhine we were just talking about, right? So that's one place. And that brings me to the point that we'll talk about with all of these, is that the keys are actually state changes. They're a chance to step into another state within yourself that helps move forward into flow, right? So the second type of state change is one where it's about deep focus. And this is the second place where you may have heard about the composers and those that are creating music and doing a lot of deep work. Matthias actually is doing Bogenschießen, bow shooting. And it's something that requires a lot of focus and a lot of attention, right? It's a solo thing. It's something just for him. There are other people around, but the sport is for him. And there's the skill involved, all of the things that he was mentioning with the door. There's the challenge and the focus needed and the attention. But for him, when he learns about it, when he watches endless YouTube videos about technique, but also all of the equipment, right? Then all of a sudden, in other areas of his life, and also when he's on the shooting range, things start to move in a way that just naturally flows. He's learning faster, he's retaining information, he's connecting dots with other information that he already had. So that's a second type of key. A third type of key is what we call the flow-going keys, right? We have a good friend who couldn't be here today, but she's one of Matthias's clients, and we asked if it was okay if we shared her story because many of you know her. I won't mention names, but she was really stuck. She was stuck at a job that wasn't overly stimulating. She's a highly creative human being who loves to create music and really does a lot of stuff with body work. But she was really stuck. And so through working together and talking about exactly how she could tap into flow, she actually decided that she was going to take a year off, a year sabbatical from work, and go travel the world and see where life was naturally taking her. So she had her first tickets, but she didn't know where the rest of the journey would take her. And this taps into actually a few of these different keys along the way, because there have been some major adventures. But it's also this place of, for example, dancing. It's where we can get into the flow of our body when we feel that state change, when perhaps some of you might experience it through yoga or through going for a walk. Maybe when your team is a little bit stuck and sometimes you feel like you've got so much focus in front of you, but maybe it's time for a state change. So going for a walk, even just 5 minutes, even just around the block. The last key, or the last type of key, is specifically about community, which is one of the reasons why we love Creative Mornings so much. It's because there's the recognition that for many of us, when we're surrounded by others who perhaps have a similar mindset, but different creative outlets, different abilities, that all of a sudden we start to feel like we see more things connecting. Earlier this year, we did something called the Happiness Agora, of which many of the Creative Mornings team was highly involved and massive help, and many of you were actually involved in it. That was one place that for me I found and I recognized one of my biggest keys, which is community involvement and community building, which all of a sudden, as I'm bringing people together, I'm feeling myself, these creative ideas coming and flowing naturally, but it took the step to say, yeah, okay, I want to bring a community together. In this case, this is one of the things that Creative Mornings does so well, which is a testament. I mean, these tickets sold out in what, 6 hours, right? Or 2 hours, right? Even better, right? And that's not a testament to the wonderful coffee and the wonderful topic and the good food, right? Those are all amazing, but it's a testament to community. That also can happen, at festivals. Sometimes you might feel like you need to connect with others. And again, all of these keys, they're not necessarily things that all of us will have on our keychain, but most of us will have many of them, many different diverse topics. So what I'm curious about, just real quick before we move on, as we've been talking, as we've been going through the door, and as I've been discussing the keys, oh, this is cool, we're turning, right? So turning the conversation around out to you guys. How many of you can think of some of your own keys? What's come up for you as we've been talking about keys? Shout them out.
Moving.
Moving, in what way? Movement.
Walking, dancing, working out, moving.
Absolutely. What else?
Nature.
Nature is a huge one. Absolutely.
Deep
deep talk. Cooking, yes. Absolutely. Creating, right? What else?
Podcast for community aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in that way, that's like a social way of communicating with others. So it's probably a deep focus, but also then about connecting, right? Really cool. So you see, these are just a few, but as you go through the rest of your day, be thinking. And one of the best ways to figure out your keys is to follow your excitement. By that I mean we have internal compasses, right? For some of us, the whole extreme sport thing doesn't do it. You think about it and you go, nope, not for me. Fine, that's not one of your keys. But what are the places in your everyday life where you feel like, this gives me energy. I'm actually energized and I would do more of this, or I feel like I've got energy rising in my body. That's a place to explore those state changes. So when you find yourself getting a little bit stuck, because you know the benefits of flow, right? The increased creativity, the ability to connect dots, right? That works miracles inside of teams. And nobody can bring someone else to a state of flow. We've talked about this a bit, right? If you're in a team, for example, at work, it's not that one individual can bring the whole team into a state of flow, but you can be like the birds, right? When they fly in their V formation, the first bird can't help all the rest of them take off. But once everyone is starting to move, perhaps when you share the elements of the door and these keys with your colleagues, perhaps you can help create a little bit of a current that makes it easier for them to tap into flow. So when you find yourself getting a little bit stuck, it's the same things that I do whenever I'm leaving the house, right? Check you've got your keys. Check the door. Do you have all of the elements? But the biggest key is move. Get to moving, get to exploring. Because when we get out of our heads and into flow, into this movement, that's when the magic really starts to happen. Thank you, guys.
Hey, just one question. I'm curious, are you still in that inner experience a little bit? Okay, cool. One technical thing.
Yes.
I'm going to put up this QR code. You can scan it, and it opens up an email form. So you can just press send, and then we have your email address. So what do we need your email address for? Well, we have a little write-up, a PDF, that summarizes everything that we've been talking about in this talk, and has additional resources on it, and
Yes.
it has some practical tips for you guys. So if you want that, you can scan this one, or you can put your email address down in the traditional analog way. We're going to put a sheet of paper back there on a table.
Exactly.
Okay? Thank you.
And just one more thing before, you're not signing up to any email lists, right? It's really just for the increased information about what we were talking today, right? All of the background information so you can learn more about the state of flow itself. And we mentioned at the beginning, Friday is Rhine Day, for anybody who wants to be included on that list so that you know when things are happening. Also just write a little extra thing in the email that says, hey, sign me up. So.
Well, thank you. Great preparation.